Welcome to the Church of Mabus radio show. It's Friday night. It's 7:07 p.m. Central, and it's the 29th. And we got Wham here with us tonight. Wham
Yes.
representing up in New York.
Yep.
I'm down here in Florida. Let me tell you, the bugs are already trying to eat you down here, waiting at the door to come in. Mosquitoes, like a horror movie. And they're just gathering at the door. I'm trying to spray stuff to make sure they don't follow you in. It's like a nightmare. But they're still cool at night, so that's pretty good. There's still some cool weather, 60s. So that's nice, but that'll be gone at some point till November. It'll be 70s and 80s. But but as far as it's good, the nights are cool. And we've been in the RV and it's good in there. And moved it recently to another power supply, and it works better there, so that's good. So we can be in it more when it's hot. And other than that, I'm dreading summer. One thing I did see, me and Christina, is that alignment, like 5 in the morning, the big one that's been happening.
Yeah.
That's pretty huge. Like it's
Yeah.
pretty trippy to look at. Definitely wild. I don't know. I guess I saw Jupiter and Venus. I don't know which ones I saw. But I saw them all, but two in particular are really bright and big. But that's been pretty cool. I think that ends today.
Something like that.
Yeah,
At
but
least it's, yeah.
it's cool though to see. It was definitely neat. I saw pictures, but then I saw it for myself, which was cool. Our guest tonight's Micah Dank. Good to have you, Micah. Good to have you here.
Yeah, round two, right?
Round two, yeah. The first time we had some tech stuff, and we all know crap happens with tech stuff. So the return, and hopefully all is well. What and Micah, Hidden Codes in the Bible, the series Into the Rabbit Hole, and book Beneath the Veil. And good to have you here. If you could give us a little bit of a background about yourself before we start your presentation.
Sure. So I'm an author, and what I do is I take maybe 40 different esoteric sciences, fringe science, fringe medicine, hidden conspiracies, uh, forbidden knowledge that not a lot of people know, and I've created an 8-book series about it, possibly a ninth. Six are out so far. The series is called Into the Rabbit Hole. My publicist is currently pitching it to TV producers. What I do is I decode ancient holy texts with astrology to prove that the books are, at least in part, an astrology book.
And I know I'd always heard that, like from Jordan Maxwell, I think in a documentary or something, that he talks about the astrology and astronomy, like the sun is Christ walking through the heavens through the different stages.
Right.
And then like fall is like the kiss of Scorpio, Judas. And it's kind of weird when you look at it like that. Is that maybe a similar way that you look at it on some way?
That's exactly it.
It's weird.
Yeah.
It's neat.
Me and Jordan were friends, and
Cool.
I sent him a lot of my work, and he kind of really encouraged me to keep going with it. There's a lot of astrotheologists out there, or there's some of them at least. But the thing that I do differently is I've kind of commercialized it, and I'm trying to get this out to the masses.
Well, it's definitely fascinating information. I'm from Georgia. I grew up in the Bible Belt all my life, and I've seen enough weird stuff where I believe there's definitely something to Christ consciousness and the light. One of my biggest experiences after beating testicular cancer when I was younger and my dad's death is I've seen beings of light many times.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen them 5 to 10 years ago, and there's just a logical part of me that says these dudes are glowing, and so there's obviously a God or something. Maybe they have Christ consciousness, but there's some connection to the sun with them, it seems like. And it makes me wonder with shamanism and luminous beings and things like that, if the source is like the sun, like God. I'm sure there's many different ways to look at it. But these beings of light, maybe, us as well in our bodies. And when we're out of them, that's what we are. And the weird thing is I've, seen them sober. I've seen them on psychedelics. I've seen them in many states of altered consciousness. And I'll never forget it. And I've had people draw them. I'd like to get them on video or photo, but I've never managed to be that fast because I'm slow. But
Mhm.
I would love to one day. But I've had weird experiences with the sun to where I can close my eyes, let the white light fill me, go into a room. One time at the gym, I saw this golden like orb, I mean pink orb over everybody in there, and I had a weird like spiritual experience. Another time I went to a house, Christina's former house, where we were helping to take care of her grandmother who transitioned, and I let that light fill me, and I went into that house and I saw like a gray being standing in the room, and it was like astral sort of, and like surprised that I saw it. But it was the first time I'd ever seen a gray being. I've seen other weird stuff, but I've never like I didn't even know if I was skeptical if they existed because I'd never seen one and heard all the stories like where are these coming from, but I saw one, and she's seen one standing over me at night and weird stuff like that. And I've had friends who have lived with me. He was an atheist. After he lived with me for a while, he was not anymore. He didn't go full Bible roller or anything, but he believed that there was a God because he'd have dreams of them taking me out the window. And I've had weird UFO stuff all my life. I don't know if I've ever been abducted, but maybe astrally they do weird stuff. I don't know. But if they took me, I don't remember a thing about anything like that. But I've seen weird stuff in the heavens over the house where you're like, what the heck is that? And friends have gone, Jeffrey, you're attracting it here. And, just it seems like they're there for you, which is a lot for your mind to comprehend. Still going through that process. But it's good to have you here. And I guess one of my questions is what started you on this whole journey spiritually? Like, what did something happen? What was the catharsis, the catalyst?
So I'm from Long Island, and that's where I live now too. Um, about 10 years ago, I had moved to Boston for a new job with an ex who I'm no longer with, and we moved to this complex in Boston, and it was a really nice gated community. It was like this really nice community, and while we were there, I think the iPad had just come out, and we didn't really know many people. So she spent a lot of time watching TV. I spent a lot of time on the iPad going down rabbit holes, and I came across a Jordan Maxwell video, and he just kind of blew my mind. And then I brought it up to one of my friends, and they sent me a video from Santos Bonocci um, called "Know Thyself" Part Two, and it just blew me away. It was the answer I was looking for, and I've literally been studying it for 10 years and teaching it and decoding since.
Very cool. And you had spoke to Jordan. I know he passed away recently. Jordan was one of the ones at Montauk. I know there's Peter Moon. I've had him on, but there's a Montauk connection there, or is there? Isn't there?
Not really sure, to be honest.
Okay, I don't think there is. I may be mixing up Peter Moon, but I know I've seen Jordan Maxwell documentaries. I have a bunch of them, and definitely fascinating. And he's talked about reptilians and things like that. Well, tell us about your presentation, and we can get it geared up.
Sure. You want me to just start?
Yeah, you can just start.
All right, hold on. All right, can you see me still?
Yep.
Yes, but now I'm going to add to stream your presentation. So now it's just us three miniaturized in your presentation. So yeah.
Okay. So I start by saying, employ your time in improving yourself by other men's writings, so that you shall come easily by what others have labored hard for. That was Socrates. And that's basically what this is. I've studied the Bible for 30 years. I've studied esoteric sciences and forbidden hidden knowledge for 20. And I've studied astrotheology for 10. And I've been decoding for as long as I can remember, maybe 8-10 years. Astrotheological processes. So what you have to understand about the Bible is a couple things. It's made up of what's known as the seven holy sciences. The scriptures are metaphysical, astrological, that I speak of, anatomical, alchemical, spiritual, esoteric, and mythology. Okay? They are not, however, literal, historical, reality, or original. And we're going to get into all of that. This is the zodiac wheel, as it shows, with Cancer at the top and Capricorn at the bottom. This is how the zodiac wheel should look. Okay? And basically, the zodiac goes back, the astrotheology goes back 40,000 years to something called the Lascaux Caves. The Lascaux Caves are called the Lascaux Caves because they're in Lascaux, France. There's nothing hidden behind the name. It goes back 40,000 years. Here you see an article that says world's oldest cave paintings shown human understood complex astronomy 40,000 years ago. Okay, so basically what happened was these teenagers went into these caves, and they went into the back of the caves, and when they went into the back of the caves, the very back of the caves, they saw something like this. And on the top, you see the bulls. On the right, you see the lions. And on the bottom, you see the horse. This is 40,000 years, by the way. What they did was they realized that the bull was Taurus, that the lion was Leo, and the horse was Sagittarius. It's just missing the guy with the bow and the arrow. So what they did when they realized this correlation is they brought in an astronomer and an astrologer with a computer, because we have the technology to do it now. And what they did was they rewound the sky back on the computer 40,000 years from where they were located, printed out what they had, they superimposed it on the cave walls, and all the constellations lined up. So they've known for 40,000 years this science, okay? There's questions you can ask in the Bible. How Jesus was able to heal the blind, how he walked on water, how he turned water into wine, why he had 12 disciples, why he was betrayed with a kiss by Judas, why he was dead for 3 days, why is his birthday on December 25th. All this can be explained with astrology, and I'm going to show you that, okay? Where is this? Okay, here we go. Genesis 1:14. Let lights appear in the sky to separate the day from the night. Let them be signs to mark the seasons, days, and years. Okay, and that's what it does. The sun and the moon separate the day and the night, and then the stars mark the seasons, days, and years. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the 12 signs of the zodiac with you, give you some key words that represent each sign, and then we're going to just decode. Okay, so I start with Aquarius, which is represented by the man with the water pitcher. Okay, so there's key words. Okay, Aquarius is the sign of the man, whereas Virgo is the sign of the woman. Okay, so whenever you hear son of man, man, because this is man, baptism, because this is how you baptize someone, the man with the water pitcher, fountain, stream, river, pond, lake, creek, ocean, sea, watery things. They're talking about water bodies. They're talking about Aquarius. The same goes for Pisces. Pisces is the mutable water sign. So all these previous water examples at the bottom that I just explained to you, fountain, stream, river, pond, lake, sea, ocean, that applies for Pisces too. So the first two signs I talk about are water based. Okay. Then the third sign is Aries that I talk about. Aries is the ram. And in Aries, you have March 21st, which is the spring equinox. It's a 12-hour day and a 12-hour night. It's also the Passover. In astrotheology, it's the passing of the sun pass over the equator and back on its way to its height in the summer solstice. In Christianity, the Passover is changed, and it's called the resurrection of God's son. So you have both Passover and Easter in Aries, always. It's always there, and they usually coincide. In Judaism, the Passover is when the angel of death passes over the Egyptian households, and anyone that doesn't have the lamb or the ram, Aries of the ram, the Jews are the people of Aries. Anyone that doesn't have the lamb's blood on the door, their firstborn sons get killed. Okay, so it's 3 separate Passovers, but it basically means the same thing. Then you have Taurus, which is the bull. And when you look at the sky and you see Taurus during the season where it's supposed to be, you know that you need to put the plow on the bull. It's as above, so below. You look at the sky, you see the bull. You know that on Earth you have to put the plow on the bull in order to harvest. Plant the seed so you can harvest in Virgo and Libra. Now, the ancients used to use a bull for plowing. We have like John Deere equipment now. Okay, but this is, again, the Bible was written 4,000 years ago. Okay, so basically that's what they had to use. They had to use the plow on the bull. Whenever you hear bull, ox, calf, or cow being the female bull, you're talking about Taurus. Then Gemini is the twins. It's the story of Castor and Pollux Troy, whose sister was Helen of Troy. It's the story of Achilles. So whenever you hear twins or brothers, they're talking about Gemini. Then Cancer is the crab. It's the sideways moving creature. So the sun rises a degree on its axis starting on December 25th. Every additional day, it rises an additional degree. The days get longer, the nights get shorter. When it hits June 21st, that's the summer solstice. That's the height, okay? That's the height that the sun will ever be at. And then what it does is it stops for 3 days. It rises to the same degree, hence moving sideways like the crab. It's just an elaborate metaphor. Then on June 25th, it drops a degree. And then the next day, it'll drop a degree. Now the nights are starting to get longer. The days are getting shorter. The crab in the ancient Egyptian time was known as the scarab. So whenever you hear crab or beetle, you're talking about Cancer. Then Leo is the king. He's the lion. He's the king of the jungle. The ruling planet of Leo is actually the sun. So whenever you hear lion, lioness, or cub, you're talking about Leo. Now, each one of these zodiac signs are also known as houses. There's words in the Bible that they're called. They're called mansions. They're called rooms. They're called houses. They're called ages. They're called eons. There's different words for them, but that's what they basically mean. It's the zodiac. Okay? Virgo is the woman holding the wheat stalk. So remember before when I said that you plant in Taurus? Well, you plant in Taurus, and then the virgins would cultivate the wheat in Virgo in order to make the bread for the year. So whenever you hear virgin, wheat, grain, seed, barley, corn, grainy things that you cultivate, that takes place in Virgo. Now, Libra is the justice. It's the scales, it's the balance, it's the just one. The reason it's the justice is because it judges God's sun as it passes over the fall equinox and begins its descent into winter, into cold, into death. So whenever you hear law, judge, justice, the just one, divorce, marriage, court, lawly things, that represents Libra, the scales of justice. Okay. Libra is also wine season. Okay. So whenever you hear wine, vineyard, wine press, grapes, they're talking about Libra. Libra is also olive oil season. Okay. So you grab the olives and the grapes in Libra to press it and get the wine and the oil. Incidentally, frankincense and myrrh are both olive plants as well. Okay. So you have Libra, you have all the law stuff, all the olive stuff, and all the wine stuff. And Scorpio is the scorpion, and he is known as the betrayer. When a scorpion, this is what you were talking about before. When a scorpion bites you, it leaves an imprint in your skin that looks like a pair of lips. It's why the mafia has the kiss of death. That's where they get that from. And it's why Jesus was betrayed by Judas with a kiss. Because in the story, Judas could have stoned him, he could have thrown a rock at him, he could have hugged him. He could have pointed him out, but instead he betrayed him with a kiss, just like the scorpion betrays with a kiss. Okay, so the sun is judged in Libra, and it's betrayed in Scorpio. Finally, in Sagittarius, this is where the bow and the arrow shoot the sun and inflict further punishment on the sun. This is where the sun dies. Why? Because on December 21st, the sun is at its lowest point. It cannot rise any lower. It's dead. It's the dead of winter. It remains at that lowest level for 3 days, which is why God's sun was dead, and then God's sun was dead for 3 days. When on December 25th, or the birth of God's sun, it rises another degree and starts to make its way back up top. So whenever you hear horse, bow and arrow, spear, or horseman, you're talking about Sagittarius. Finally, you have Capricorn, who's the goat, because he likes to climb the mountain. And if you've ever looked at a mountain goat climbing the mountain, it climbs the mountain better than any other animal. Now look at the zodiac wheel on the right. Capricorn's at the bottom. So if you put a little sun at the bottom, okay, to resemble December 21st, which is the lowest that it'll be, at Cancer at the height, that's June 21st. It climbs a degree a day alongside this wheel. It starts to climb in Capricorn, okay, which is why it's the goat. Okay, so does that make sense to you guys? Do you have any questions?
I'm just kind of listening, and it's definitely it trips you out hearing all this for some reason, for sure. I'm a Capricorn, and I guess I've always trying to understand Capricorn. I know I see a lot of people in tarot like to call Capricorn the devil, and I've had guests tell me it's much more complex to that. It's kind of like, I guess, stereotyping or something. I don't know what it is, yeah. But I would be curious.
Well, because all the demons and Baphomet and everyone have a goat's head.
Yeah,
but that's because it represents winter, which is which I'll get into later if we could finish it.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Well, I would like to know more about Capricorn. If that comes up, that's great for sure. But enjoying it.
Okay, so now there's names in church that are given to Jesus. Okay, all his nicknames are astrological based. Okay, when the sun is in Capricorn, he's called the scapegoat of Israel. When the sun is in Aquarius, the man sign, he is the son of man. When the sun is in Pisces, the 2 fish, he's known as the fisherman of men. And it's also why he feeds the masses with 2 fish on the mound. When the sun is in Aries, he's the Lamb of God, or the Good Shepherd. When the sun is in Leo, he's known as the Lion of Judah. The lady holding the stalk of wheat, Virgo, he's born of a virgin, and he's called the bread of life. Libra is the scales of justice. He's known as the just one. Then he's betrayed in Scorpio. He dies in Sagittarius, and it's why he's worshipped on the sun day. That's why Christians worship on the Sunday. Now, look at the picture on the left. This is a stereotypical picture of Jesus that I found on the internet, but really you could use just anyone. But I'm going to use this particular one. I'm going to draw your attention to a few things. The sun behind his head, the two fingers up like this, the heart outside the body, the crown of thorns around the heart, okay? His white face, that face of his, that stereotypical face, and the white and the red robe. The sun is always behind Jesus because he represents the sun. In any picture you'll find of Jesus, the sun will always be behind his head because they're telling you he's the sun. They're encoding it. The two fingers up are an ancient Kemetic peace sign, okay? This sign right here that I'm doing, this is the British V for victory. It's a separation of the fingers. It's the Churchill war sign. The fingers that he's doing, this is the ancient original peace sign. That's how you give a peace sign to someone. This is the original peace sign. Okay, so whenever you see Baphomet, the statue of Baphomet, or Jesus, or Buddha, or any of them, any of these gods, doing that two fingers up, they're telling you they're peaceful. Okay, a lot of people don't know that. Now, the white Jesus picture is actually a guy named Caesar Borgia, who was the bastard son of Pope Alexander VI. See, Pope Alexander VI's name was Rodrigo Borgia, and he bought his way to the papacy in the 1500s. Now, 80 years before he bought his way to the papacy, the printing press came out. So he decided his son was going to be the face of it, and he was going to just shoot it around. He was just going to mass produce it, and his face was going to be the face of it. Before then, there was no picture of him. Okay? Now, Caesar Borgia was a really nasty dude. Okay? He actually killed his brother. He slept with his sister. He was a hot mess. Okay? But he ended up becoming the face of Jesus because of his father, the Pope. Now, popes used to have children. It seems weird. They did. They were all bastards because popes couldn't get married. Okay? Now, the crown of thorns wrapped around the heart outside the body, and the heart is always on the outside, represents the rays of the sun. Jesus is crucified with with the crown of thorns on his head. They represent the sun's rays. You ever draw a sun before and you draw out the rays? That's what it is. That's what it represents. Now, the heart outside the body represents the toroidal field or the human torus field. Okay? Here's a bunch of pictures of Jesus, just pulled from the internet. The heart's outside the body. The sun is always behind it. It's always with the sun. You'll always see Jesus with the sun. In the second picture, you'll have a Knights Templar cross in the sun. You'll have that sometimes too. But you'll see the two fingers up. You'll see the heart. You'll see that same face. Pictures of baby Jesus, the same thing. The sun is behind his head. And you'll see the North Star Polaris in the picture at all times. Okay? That's what it's telling you. It's celestial. Okay? This whole thing is celestial. This is what the toroidal field looks like. It's an electromagnetic field of the heart. Some people call it an aura, whatever you want to call it. You're the center, okay? And it looks like an apple. You're the center of the apple. You're the core. And it goes around you 6 feet. Okay? It juts around you 6 feet. Encircles you 6 feet. That's why the elites tried to keep you 6 feet apart during the pandemic. Because nobody can give an answer why it was 6 feet. This is why. It's because they didn't want you to basically interact with anyone. When someone comes up behind you, okay, and they break your toroidal field, it looks like this. Okay? So it looks like that when they break your toroidal field. So when someone comes up behind you and you know they're there, you're not psychic. Okay? They just broke a field. That's a measurable field. Now, this is the face left of Jesus. Okay? On the right is a very raw description of Caesar Borgia. Do you see where he gets his features from?
I see it, yes. I've been muting just so no sound comes in, but yes, I see it.
Yeah. So this is the face. This is Caesar Borgia. This is the face of Jesus. Okay? So now I've given you the keywords. We've gone over the keywords. So let's start applying it. Have you heard of the phrase pride comes before the fall?
Yes.
Can you explain it to the listeners, please?
Pride becomes before the fall, like your ego kind of bask in your own selfish glory before you fall, kind of sort of situation.
Exactly what it means. However, in astrotheology, okay, do you know what a group of lions is called?
No.
It's called the pride.
Okay.
Okay, so a group of lions is called the pride. Pride is the lion. Lion is Leo. Leo is in July and August. That comes before the fall. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Now the second one, in the book of Micah 5:2, my namesake. But you, Bethlehem Ephratah, though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come from me one who will be ruler over Israel, whose origins are from old, from ancient times. However, In Hebrew, Bethlehem is a combination of two words. It's Bet, which means house, and Lechem, which means bread, the house of bread. Well, I told you each zodiac sign is called a house, and which one would be the house of bread? Virgo, the virgin. So what Mike is really saying is, but you, Bethlehem Ephratah, a god will come from you, or a king will come from you. Okay? So from Bethlehem. So what he's saying is the Savior will come from a virgin. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. So the next one is Deuteronomy 32. I'm hopping around because I just want to show, I want to prove that it's in every single book. Okay? This coding is in every single book. So Deuteronomy 32. He gave them honey from the cliffs and olive oil from the rocky ground. He gave his people butter from the herd and milk from the flock. He gave them lambs and goats. They had the best rams from Bashan and the finest wheat. They drank the best wine made from the juice of red grapes. But Jeshurun became fat and kicked like a bull. So out of the words that I've given you, you could pick out a few, right?
Yes.
So let's go through this. So he gave them honey from the cliffs. In the sign Cancer, there's a group of stars called the beehive cluster. It's an asterism. So that's metaphorically where the honey comes from the beehives. Olive oil is Libra. That's when you crush the olives, as I mentioned. Then he gave his people milk from the flock. Well, milk comes from the Milky Way galaxy. And the Milky Way galaxy has been called the Milky Way galaxy as far back as I know. Okay? Because I've read it. The Egyptian Book of the Dead. Okay? So thousands of years before then. Now, the Milky Way galaxy centers in Sagittarius. So your sign from Cancer to Sagittarius, that's your land of milk and honey. It's not a place on earth. Okay? It's a celestial metaphor. He gave them lambs, which is Aries, and goats, which is Capricorn. That's you. They had the best rams, that's Aries, from Bashan, and the finest wheat being Virgo. They drank the lady with the wheat stalk. They drank the best wine made from the juice of red grapes. That's Libra again. But Jeshurun became fat and kicked like a bull. That's Taurus. Does that make sense?
Yes, I see it.
So there's 10 signs in this one passage. Now, the Mount of Olives. I'm going to show you how we start decoding things. Jesus led his disciples to the Mount of Olives after his last Passover so he could teach them a few more things, pray, then wait for Judas to betray him. While walking to the Mount of Olives, he gave the parable of the true vine. So Passover takes place in Aries, as I've mentioned. So go to Aries on the zodiac wheel. It's all the way on the left. Well, right after that, he walks to the Mount of Olives. Well, olives are Libra. So how do you get from Aries to Libra? You literally go across the zodiac. They're known as opposing signs or cross signs. You're going to see nothing but opposing signs and connecting sign passages. Okay, they're patterns. Okay, they're mapping out the star universe for you. So Passover takes place in Aries, and then he walks to the Mount of Olives. Olives are in Libra. They're opposing signs. They're in Libra, and they're waiting for Judas to betray him. Well, the betrayer is Scorpio, which is the sign right after Libra. So you go from Aries to Libra across the zodiac, and then you're waiting for the next sign. And while you're in Libra, he gives the parable of the true vine, which has to do with grapes in a vineyard. Okay, which is still Libra. Does that make sense? Do you see how this is starting to decode this way?
Yes, I definitely see a connection for sure.
Okay, so let's keep going then. Genesis 1:7, and God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, that it was so. The firmament is the dividing lines between zodiac signs. It's not a dome over a flat earth. That is not the firmament. The firmament is a dividing line. Some people call them cusps. Some people call them handover dates. What it is the firmament is a 3-day period where one sign hands over to another sign. Okay? So he made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. So look at the firmament here. And remember, Aquarius and Pisces are both water, as I've explained. So does this not divide the water from above from the water below?
Yes.
Okay. So Revelation now. We'll just jump around. The first living creature was like a lion. The second was like an ox. The third had a face like a man. The fourth was like a flying eagle. The first living creature was like a lion. That's Leo. The second was like an ox. That's Taurus. The third had a face like a man. That's Aquarius. The fourth was like a flying eagle. In astrology, the Scorpio scorpion is the belly-crawling creature. It's the lowest form of life on Earth. In its evolved form is the eagle, which is the highest flying form of life on Earth. So the eagle becomes Scorpio. Okay? So you have Leo, Taurus, Aquarius, and Scorpio. Those are the 4 fixed signs in of the zodiac. In the zodiac, you have signs called fixed signs, mutable signs, cardinal signs. The reason they're called fixed is because they're fixed in their season. if you were to look at the zodiac, Leo's right in the middle of summer, Taurus, spring, Aquarius, winter, and the eagle or Scorpio is the fall. So let's read this one more time. The first living creature was like a lion. The second was like an ox. The third had a face like a man. The fourth was like a flying eagle. Okay? Now,
Okay.
Leo, lion, man, Aquarius, opposing signs. There's that pattern I was talking about. Ox, Taurus, eagle, Scorpio, opposing signs. Do you see how it makes an X through the wheel?
Yes.
That's all it's doing. That's all this passage is doing. It's not going to be a four-headed animal or four-headed thing in the sky to bring on the apocalypse. Okay? It's literally outlining the celestial heavens. Okay? Revelation 12. A great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head. She was pregnant and cried out in pain as she was about to give birth. Then another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on its head. Its tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to earth. Revelation 12 explanation. A woman clothed with the sun is the sun clothed in Virgo. It just means the sun's in Virgo. It's a metaphor. Now, if the sun's in Virgo, the moon will be at her feet. So we have a 24-hour-a-day clock. We have 12 zodiac signs. The sun spends 2 hours a day in each sign. If the sun is in Virgo, that's between 4 and 6 p.m. That's when the sun is out. So if the sun is out, the moon is metaphorically at her feet. Whereas if the moon is out, the sun is metaphorically at her feet. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Then another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous dragon. Its tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to earth. The constellation Draco, which I'm sure you've heard, is the dragon. Its tail goes from Aries to Sagittarius, which is 4/12 of the signs, or 1/3 of the stars out of the sky. These are just celestial metaphors. There's not going to be a giant dragon in the sky yelling at a pregnant woman. Okay? This is just mapping out the heavens as they knew it at the time. Matthew 10:16. Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. The sheep is Aries, and the wolf is the constellation Lupus, who borders the Libra line. Those are opposing signs. Again, opposing signs, neighboring signs. You're going to constantly see these patterns. That's how you know they were encoded, done deliberately. Because it's not just jumping. It would be one thing if it was just jumping around from zodiac sign to zodiac sign with no pattern. But there's specific patterns, as the ones that I've shown you so far. They make specific patterns in the sky. Okay, so I've given examples of astrotheology in the Old Testament, as well as the New Testament. I've been accused of cherry-picking verses from the Bible to prove a point. So let's take a much longer passage, see if we can decode it as well. So we come up to the book of Job. Are you familiar with the book of Job?
Yes, I am. I've read it, and I know I've read another book of Charles Swindoll breaking it down and stuff like that. So yes, no expert, but yes, I'm familiar with it.
Can you explain to everybody who Job was and what his story was?
Job was in the Bible, and of course he was kind of tested by Satan, and he went through a lot of ordeals, and his own family cursed him, and he had a lot of loss and pain and boils, and went through hell, but he stood firm and he restored himself in the end game.
Correct. But at one point, is he not sitting on a rock crying out to God and God answers him?
Yes.
What I'm going to do right now is read you God's answer to him. Now, the first sentence that I read is from the Bible, what God says. The second sentence, or the explanation, is the explanation. Sound good?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the entire God's answer. Job 38:32. He says, can you lead forth the Mazzaroth? The Mazzaroth literally is the zodiac. His first question to Job is, do you know your zodiac? Mazzaroth over time becomes Mazalot, which survives in Judaism today as Mazel Tov, which means good fortune from the stars. And you know how old Mazel Tov is. You can only imagine how old the word Mazzaroth is. So what is the Lord's challenge to Job? He says, can you bind the chains of the Pleiades? Can you loosen Orion's belt? These are the type of celestial metaphors I've been talking about, but they're out in the open, right?
Yes.
Can you bring forth the constellation in their seasons, or lead out the bear with its cubs? The constellations are the zodiac above. The bear and its cubs are Ursa Major, the Great Bear, and Ursa Minor, part of the Big Dipper. Then he says, who can tip over the water jars of the heavens? That's Aquarius. That's literally the man with the water pitcher pouring it out. Do you hunt the prey for the lioness and satisfy the hunger for the lions? That's Leo. Who provides the food for the raven? That's the constellation Corvus, which means raven and borders on Virgo. Do you watch where the doe bears her fawn? Mriga, meaning deer, is located in Orion. Who let the wild donkey go free? That's Stellus Borealis, meaning donkey, and is located in Cancer. Will the wild ox consent to serve you? That's Taurus. You see where I'm going with this, right?
Okay. Yes.
The wings of the ostrich flap joyfully. That's Lambda Achille or Al Thaliman, which means two ostriches in Arabic. You give the horse its strength. It laughs at fear, afraid of nothing. It does not shy away from the sword. The quiver rattles against its side along with the flashing spear and lance. Sagittarius with the bow and the arrow. Does the eagle soar at your command and build its nest on high? Aquila is the Latin name for eagle and is a constellation a few degrees above the celestial equator. Finally, he says, can you pull in Leviathan with a fish hook? Anybody that knows ancient mythology knows that Leviathan was the fish god. So that's the fish. That's Pisces. So exactly, that's his response to Job. He quizzes him secretly on all these star constellations. Psalm 104. He sends forth springs in their valleys. The wild donkeys quench their thirst. He causes the grass to grow for the cattle, and wine which makes man's heart glad, so that he may make his face glisten with oil. The high mountains are for the wild goats. He made the moon for the seasons. The sun knows the place of its setting. The young lions roar after their prey. The springs are Aquarius. The wild donkeys are Acellus Borealis, which are in Cancer. The cattle is Taurus the bull. The wine is Libra, the oil is Libra. The wild goats are Capricorn. The moon for the seasons and the sun knows the place of its setting is openly talking about the sun and the moon. The lions roar after their prey are Leo. Now let's just do one more from Psalms. Psalm 147. He gives to the beast its food and to the young ravens which cry. He does not delight in the strength of the horse. He does not take pleasure in the legs of the man. He makes peace in your borders. He satisfies you with the finest of the wheat. He gives snow like wool. The ravens are the constellation Corvus. The horse is Sagittarius. The man is Aquarius. The wheat is Virgo, and the wool from the sheep, or Aries. Okay? Now, the questions that I had asked you at the beginning. Okay? How Jesus was able to heal the blind. Okay? So, in the story, the Son, S-O-N of God, literally licks his fingers, touches the blind man's eyes, and then he can see. But the sun in the sky does the same thing. Right now, if you could see, I'm outside right now. I can't see anything. It's dark. The sun's gone. But when the sun comes up to me in the morning and touches my eyes, suddenly I'm given the gift of sight again. Okay? How he walked on water. Sun in Christos. Have you ever seen a sunset on a lake before?
Yes. Yes, I have.
The sun literally walks across the water. Okay? Also, okay, Christ in Greek was Christos. And Christos means oil. Now, does oil not walk on water too?
Okay, yes.
Okay, it's a double entendre. So how he turned water into wine, this is not a parlor trick. This is a process. So the reason God is considered a man and Mother Earth is considered a woman has to do with his sacred fluid, his rain. The word in Hebrew is shemen. We get the word semen from it. What happens is God's sacred fluid comes down onto Mother Earth, and then as it rains onto her, the sacred fluid impregnates her, and then food and wildlife, plants, flowers, and all this stuff grow. So what happens is April showers bring May flowers. You plant in Taurus, okay, because that's when Taurus is, April, May. And then what happens is it rains and it rains and it rains. You plant the grapes and it rains and it rains and it rains. And then you get the grapes in Libra, and then you crush them to make the wine. That's how you turn water into wine. It's a process. It's not a parlor trick. Why he had 12 disciples, we went over this before. Each one of the disciples represents a zodiac sign. Judas represents Scorpio, the betrayer. John the Baptist would clearly be Aquarius, the man with the water pitcher. Okay? Each one of them has a sign. Each one of them has a story. I'm not going to really go into that. But why was he betrayed with a kiss by Judas? We went over that. Why was he dead for 3 days? We went over that. Why is his birthday on December 25th? We went over that. So that's basically the first third. So what do you think? I haven't gotten much feedback.
Man, yeah, mostly I've just been kind of enraptured. But it's a lot to think about. And I know, I guess what I try to figure out in a lot of ways, I've had spiritual experiences with the sun. It's just hard to, I believe there's something to it, definitely more to it. And I noticed in some, I don't know if it was, who is it? Jehovah's Witnesses, which of course I'm not one of those, but I've seen their little book, that Watchtower, like they left it bugging me or something at my house. And there was the sun and a dude sitting on the throne on the sun on the cover of that book. But I guess just from your personal experience, do you really think the sun's like a dude sitting up there? I mean, is it literally Christ?
Yeah, he's a solar deity from the Piscean age. He's a solar deity. The way I explain this is that when people ask me what I do, I say I go back in time to the Greeks and I talk to the Senate and I talk to all these intelligent people and I give them a lecture and try to explain to them how Zeus isn't real. It's the same thing here. It's another god. It's a solar deity. Okay? Before Jesus in the New Testament, you had Horus in the Egyptian times, who was the sun god, who was the solar god. It's all about sun worship. Everything is always about everything. Everything goes back to sun or Saturn worship. It's the only two things. There's nothing else.
And when it comes to, I know you've talked about December 25th, but a lot of people argue Jesus was born in the spring or whatever. Do you think?
Right. Well, they'll tell me, oh, how does he die December 21st in Sagittarius when the Passover was the Last Supper? So didn't he die in Aries? This is the science behind the story you're reading. Let me show you a slide real quick. I usually save this for the end.
Okay.
John Dominic Cressant. My point once again is not that these ancient people told literal stories and we are now smart enough to take them symbolically, but that they told them symbolically and we are now dumb enough to take them literally. That says it all. That says it all. That's what it is.
It's definitely fascinating for sure. And what was Capricorn? Was he a particular disciple that was represented? What disciple was that one?
Oh, I'd have to go back into that and to look at it. Let me
Okay,
think.
well, let me know if you don't know it now and know it later. Just tell me an email or something. But I was just curious. And it's strange how Capricorn, I read a story once that was kind of weird, and I don't know where I saw this about Capricorn. So I'm always trying to figure out how it was designed, because it's basically Pan with a serpentine tail that supposedly represents the dark unconscious. And one weird story, and I saw this on some site, and I don't know where it came from. It's kind of weird. I saw something that Pan was caught self-pleasuring himself, and the gods caught him and punished him and threw him in the Nile River and gave him a serpentine tail. Now, that could have been some just BS on an astro site. I don't know, but I don't know if there's any basis in fact. But do you know anything about the actual creation of that sign, what it represents? Like, why Pan? Why?
So Pan is the Greek god man. He's half goat, that's Capricorn, and half man, that's Aquarius. Those are connecting signs on the zodiac. It's just a combination of the two. The same way that if I said you combine Pisces with Aquarius, you'll get mermen, right? The fish and the man.
Yes.
Okay. It's the same thing. It's the same thing with Virgo, the woman, and Pisces. Those are now opposing signs on the zodiac. That's how you get mermaids. Okay. These are all astrological stories. The serpent's tail comes from Ophiuchus, which is the sign between Sagittarius and Scorpio. It's known as the serpent bearer. There's two serpents in astrotheology. There's the serpent bearer, which is Ophiuchus, which is more sidereal or Vedic astrology. And there's also Hydra, Hail Hydra. Hail Hydra's on the other side of the zodiac.
It's definitely fascinating. And as far as, like, let's say Revelations in an end game, is that something that you think's literally going to happen, or is it just symbolism?
No, the people who wrote the Bible are still in control of everything. Okay, so they're not fulfilling prophecy. They're tailoring things to make it look like they're fulfilling prophecy, to keep people busy, to keep people reading this book. That's what they're doing. If you knew the ending, you could tailor it any way you wanted.
Sun and Christos. And I know they had said something recently about that sign you mentioned, like they released that it's the new sign, a different sign that's out or something, the bonus sign or something, but that didn't seem like it lasts very long. Like
it didn't, because people fought against it, because the Bible, what I'm doing right now is using tropical astrology. That's the 12 signs. When you add Ophiuchus and you start doing sidereal or Vedic astrology, every sign goes back a sign. Okay, so as where you're a Capricorn, okay, you would be a Sagittarius. Okay, so it doesn't really work that way, because the ancients used tropical astrology. Okay. If you add the 13th sign in, suddenly Scorpio is only 6 days long. Suddenly Virgo is a month and a half long. It throws everything up. These neighboring signs and cross signs, all these patterns that I've just shown you get screwed up. You can no longer make them. Okay. So what's more likely? Okay, that these patterns exist accidentally? All of these patterns? I mean, I barely touched anything. I only talked about maybe 7 or 8 books. Next time I come on, I'll have to do the book of Matthew.
Yeah,
we
we'll
can go-
definitely,
we can go line for line through it, line for line, and I'll show you how it's the same stuff.
I guess I'm just trying to understand. So what would you consider your spiritual belief? Do you believe in Christ personally, or do you think it's just all symbolism? I mean, I'm trying to understand.
It's all symbolism. It's all symbolism. Okay, I believe in creation. I believe in not creation like the biblical creation, but I believe in a creator God or an entity that created. The sun tells the hour of the day. The moon tells the day of the month. The zodiac tells the month of the year. It's a perfect calendar. And what they did, the reason they embedded all this stuff in the Bible is because we take for granted that we have a clock, a calendar, weathermen. They didn't have that back in the day. They had a sundial. They had to look at the stars and literally know, okay, do I plant now? Because they didn't have clocks. They didn't have calendars. They didn't know when to plant. So I see the bull. Now I got to plant. Because if you didn't do that, then you're not eating at the end of the year and you're going to starve in the winter. Okay, so this is a way to encode all this information so that it doesn't get lost. So that's why they did that.
It's definitely very, very neat for sure, and it's just a lot. It makes it kind of it's kind of overbearing. Like it kind of like I feel it. I mean, there's something to it. You feel it in your body when you talk about it. Just the and Scorpio's Pluto, right? And yeah, Pluto's Scorpio. So how do you feel about like dark forces and unholy forces? Do you think these things are on the earth with us, or is it,
No, I go into this later. I go into this later in this presentation on how Satan and Lucifer are just astrology and it's not real. Hell isn't actually a flaming place where people burn. It's actually winter, and I show historical evidence of that. What they do is they invert it and pervert it. That's what they do. But the big question is, why does the Catholic Church and Islam both forbid astrology if there is so clearly, obviously astrological influences? Like, you can't deny that there's no astrology in this at this point, can you?
Sure can. I mean, it's definitely there, no doubt about it.
Right. So you got to ask, why does the Catholic Church have a catechism 2116 where they ban astrology? Why does Islam? Why did Muhammad ban astrology? You got to ask that question.
And I know in some of your questions, DMT and stuff comes up, and I've had experiences with that. And one of my big experiences with that was I saw strange writing on the wall, and I like went up to it and was like, it was there, but not there. But it was like I saw it and touched the wall. I don't remember exactly what it was. It was really weird, but then later it went away. But I mean, I've had experiences, and in shamanism, and had medicine people on and spoke about that stuff. Where did that fit into a lot of your studies?
I talk about it in my book series a little bit. DMT, what's called DMT drip. What they're doing right now is they found a way to slow drip DMT into you like an IV to keep you under. And they're having these people go in and map these universes out like Zelda maps. That's what they're doing. They're mapping out the higher dimensions. They're trying to get to the edge. They're trying to get to the edges of it. Yeah, that's what they're currently doing. I talk about it in my books.
And I know I've interviewed Timothy Wiley, and he's been on that Hamilton's Pharmacopoeia, and we've talked about some of this different stuff. And DMT, I mean, pretty much it's illegal in most of the United States, isn't it?
It's illegal everywhere.
Yeah. Is it in other countries too? I mean, everywhere they've kind of outlawed it.
No, if you go to like the jungle, you could do ayahuasca and things like that. But no, DMT is still highly regulated. And believe me, it's not because they're worried about what's going to happen to you. They're worried that it's going to break the conditioning and free your mind from these paradigms that the elites have put up. Okay, all this nonsense, this debt slavery, this war, all this nonsense. You take DMT, so you don't give a crap about it anymore.
Yeah, it's definitely something else for sure. It's been a while, but I've had chances to do the toad venom stuff, but I haven't because it kind of scares the crap out of me on watching some of those documentaries about it.
Yeah,
I don't know. Should I do that one? I don't know.
well, that's a complete ego. That's a complete ego death.
Yeah.
It's a complete ego death. You have no sense of self anymore. You're just one with the universe. You're just one.
And I've seen some of those experiences. I mean, they seem pretty like it's kind of scary. Some of them aren't. As you know, it seems. But
Because you
afterward,
want to
it
think
seems
that you're in
pleasant.
control. That you want to think you're in control, but you're not. You're not in control. Control and safety are an illusion. Okay, we put alarms on our doors. We buy bigger houses. We put gates up, but security is an illusion. Just like being in control is an illusion. You're not in control.
And your presentation, how long is it? It'll take what three shows to do it. How long did you say it was?
Yeah, it'll probably take 3 shows.
Okay. Well, we'll definitely set it up. We'll do the trilogy. That's for sure. Like Star Wars, for sure. No doubt about it. But I love it. I mean, I think there's great truth to it. I'm just trying to, understand it and take it in. And I've heard some things from Jordan Maxwell, but it's been a while.
Right. Well, this is different than what Jordan does because what I do is I actually decode phrases.
Yes.
I actually decode phrases. My next big project is to go through the entire Bible and decode the whole thing with astrology.
I had a weird experience once, and I was reading the Bible on psychedelics, and I saw the sun turn into an angel and it fell from the heavens. And yes, I was on psychedelics, but I saw that like it was really happening. I don't know what the heck it meant, but I saw it. Like a lot of people in my younger days were like, the curtains are moving. That wasn't the case. I would see ghosts and beings of light and that experience, the sun like an angel falling from the heavens. And, and with revelations and stuff, there's debate if some of these, psychedelics were used, like, Moses on the mount with the flaming bush and stuff. Is that something that comes up a lot of psychedelic use with some of this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really talk about. I talk about psychedelics in my book, yes, but not so much in the Bible. Okay. I kind of, when I'm talking in the Bible in my book series, I talk about the astrology.
Well, to me, psychedelics is an opening of the mind. It's a tool that like with anything, it can be abused, of course. That's what I learned with Kratom, which I'm glad I don't do that anymore. But compared to most people, I didn't really do that much. But it's just when you take it every day or take it so you can go somewhere, that's when you're, pushing the line. But so is that, are you going to continue with the presentation or is there, what do you want to go into now?
No, I'm basically, I actually have to take off.
Okay.
So I would like to reschedule with you to do another hour or another third of this presentation.
Okay. Well, we'll definitely do that. And I've enjoyed it. And it's a lot to take in. It's like you feel it on different levels. And, and I'd like to learn more about Saturn and Capricorn too. That's right. Definitely a weird one. There's some fascinating people that are Capricorns, David Bowie, Anthony Hopkins, some strange stuff there that I'm always trying to deal with that sign, just being it. It's an odd sign, but we appreciate it so much. What is your website?
I don't have a website, but I have a Twitter, Real Mr. Dank, spell out Mr. And I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Micah Dank. So all you got to do is just reach out to me. If you want to see more, I'll send you more of my work.
All right. Well, we appreciate it so much, and we'll definitely get you back for some more of the presentation. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Take care, guys.
All right. Have a good weekend. All right, everybody. You're listening to United Public Radio. I could talk about some guests coming up. Let's see. I'm getting Jerry Sargent. That's next week. Star healing using light frequency or star frequency to heal. I don't know much about it, but like this dude with muscles and tattoos talking about healing you. So I'll check it out. Why not? But he's using the star frequencies like to know how you tap into the star frequencies right now, because I could use a star frequency enema.
There
Something.
you go. We'll put the Milky Way right up your.
The starlight. I could use a boost for sure. No doubt about it. Let's see. And then Dacre Stoker's the 13th. That's Bram Stoker, dude. Mark Nelson, shamanism. Madame Pamita. That's some Baba Yaga book.
Baba Yaga book.
Yeah, that's from Lillowin. Then Daniel Moeller, that's shamanism. Al Going Back, that's native. June 17th, Ra Costado, that's alien stuff. And then June 24th, it's the big one with Jay, Cliff Dunning, the Marijuana Prostate Show. Can't wait for that one.
Marijuana prostate? What's that
Some
about?
whole book.
God,
There's a whole book on it. I don't know. I know about marijuana, but
I'm glad that you've got Jay doing that.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to do 2 hours of it.
Yeah, but that's on something that I even want to know that much about.
I don't know anything about it. I'm just trying to make sure my prostate don't get the cancer like my testes did one day. That's the only thing I care about. Other than the other stuff, we'll stick with that. I know about the weed.
Yeah.
But let's see. We'll get Micah back for some more of that. I've heard some similar things from Jordan Maxwell. But, I mean, he goes into it here a lot more. He says he knows Jordan Maxwell. I know Jordan just passed. But, I mean, there's something to it. What do you think? There's something to it.
Can I be blunt?
Yes.
I don't care. I mean, it's like I've known of this kind of correlative stuff for probably 30 years. And it's not that I think that there's nothing to it. I guess for me, it's like, I mean, anybody who has studied any rabbinic stuff, the way that, especially the Hebrew Bible was put together, like none of this is news, really. The rabbis were talking about this stuff in the Middle Ages. So to me, it's like, of course, it's a coded text. It's the Hebrew Bible in particular. A lot of it is liturgical, which means it's used for ceremony and ritual, and so it's automatically going to kind of be like that just because of that. So for me, it's like, yeah, okay. So what does that mean? That it means it's not literal. Well, we know that too. That's why in the Jewish tradition, there are 4 different levels that you interpret every biblical text by. And there's the plain meaning of the text, and that's the least important, and then at the deepest area, there's this code, this esoteric code. So,
Do you think the sun is a dude?
I don't know that it's a dude, and the reason I say I don't know if it's a dude is because not all traditions see the sun as male.
Might be a chick.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is. I do tend to think that there is really a kind of that the sun does express a certain kind of consciousness. Because I'm an animist, so I tend to believe everything is alive in a certain way. But to me, it's not that the sun is a dude or the sun is a chick. It's what our relationship with the sun is and how we express that. That to me is more interesting.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Well, and he made a lot of allusions to the elite. Well, I'd like to know a little bit more about who he thinks the elite are, because there are a lot of people who use that terminology, but they may mean very different things when they say that. So it's like, okay, all right. But whatever,
Exactly.
I mean,
And
it's perfectly fine to have him on and let him talk, and share his view of things. I mean, that there's no issue with that.
I've had weird experiences with the sun. I don't know exactly what the heck it means, but there's been some times where I've seen the sun shining on the lake and saw weird stuff, kind of like scrying. And I was like, what the
Yeah.
hell am I seeing? That looks like something going on more than normal. Then I've had it where I filled the white light and had some strange experiences. So there's something to it. But most people just think it's like a ball of gas. I mean, the science, right? It's just like a.
Well, physically, I mean, from a physical perspective, from physics, it's plasma. Yeah, it's superheated plasma in a well, it's not permanent, but in a continuous fusion reaction, and whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what we measure of it physically, but it obviously means more than that to us because without it, we'd be dead. So
Exactly. It's life and creation. And let's look up old Al going back. He was friends with a guy named Scott Marlowe, who's been on the show a long time ago, a crypto.
I've heard the name. I've heard the
And
name.
he was friends with that guy, and that guy passed away, Scott Marlowe. He sent some books to me before, but he used to do panels with Scott about cryptids and stuff, so we can talk about cryptids and things like that as well. But been trying to get him for a while. Some of the books he wrote: Coyote Rage,
Mm.
Tribal Screams, Crota, Darker Than Night, Evil Whispers, Breed, Shaman Moon, Eagle Feathers, and The Gift. I've read Darker Than Night, Crota, and Coyote Rage. I need to get some more of those because I really enjoyed it. But Al has ghostwritten several books for Hollywood celebrities, which I'm curious who that'd be. He has also lectured across the country on the customs and folklore of the American Indians, served in the military, owned a restaurant lounge, and worked as a cemetery caretaker. He is a member of the Arthur's Guild, Horror Writers Association, International Thriller Writers, and the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers of America. So, looking forward to that one. I've been trying to corner him for a while, so finally trapped him. I'm gonna reel him in.
Him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But he's always on like news stations doing interviews and stuff. Like I've seen him interview him in a cemetery and weird stuff like that, and then the papers and stuff like that. But he's been around for a good while, and I'd like to hear the George Romero story and all that stuff. So I'm trying to. So has your audiobook come out yet?
I'm still working on it. I'm just finishing it. In fact, this weekend is the weekend to complete it. And it's, both Michael and I have had various things that have gotten in the way. He was sick for like over a week and couldn't talk. And so that put him behind in recording. And then just because of my work and because of taxes and stuff, I haven't been I'm not quite finished reviewing all the chapters. And then I have to do a PDF. I have to finish a PDF that will have that will go with the audiobook that has all the endnotes and the bibliography and all that extra stuff in it. That's the back of the book. And so that's what I'm doing this weekend. So as soon as I get all that stuff done and I okay all of his recordings, then we're good. So I'm anticipating sometime in the middle of next week, probably.
Very cool. Have you been working on anything else book wise?
Not book wise, no. And part of that has just been because I've been so busy I've been kind of going through a cycle of some of my own personal stuff that I have to sort of get squared away before I can do the next thing, so to speak. But I feel something coming on. So
Cool. I got that Peter Levenda other Lovecraft book I needed. So
the Starry Wisdom.
Yeah, I finally got a hold of that one at a pretty like for $10 or something a while back, but I have all three of those. I just need to start them at some point. But so what do you think about? Oh, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was going to say you'll like them if you start them. and you'll learn a lot too. I mean, Star of Wisdom is a really interesting book, and I'm going to have to go back and reread parts of it, because I think that he's actually doing something there that is rather sophisticated, but I don't know that many people. You have to have a pretty good background in occultism to understand what he's doing, and what he is suggesting there, and it's pretty unusual, and it's pretty revolutionary, really, honestly. I mean, Don Webb would love it. I'm sure Don Webb has read it, but it's very sophisticated.
Does it make you think of that Necronomicon book any? Does it kind of like seem like it's more of a connection to that? Like he actually,
No,
I know he's part of it.
Not at all. I mean, I would say that probably the first volume is most like that material. The Lovecraft Code, I would say that is most like that stuff that you find in the Simon's Necronomicon. But it diverges from there. It changes. It goes in different directions from that. I personally don't know how much he was involved with all that. I think that, I'm sure he's not telling us the whole story, because I think he is trying to kind of cover for some people. He's trying to keep some people anonymous. But I think that he did contribute to it, clearly, in some way. I don't know how exactly, but I think he did.
Yeah, those books always creep me out for some reason. I don't know. They probably shouldn't, but I don't know. There's just something creepy about them. I think part of it's there's some weird story in the front of it about Son of Sam and UFOs or something weird that kind of just sets this creepiness to it. I don't remember. I'd have to reread it, but I know there's something about that in the intro, like something about.
I don't. Have you? Do you have Netflix?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if you've. Okay. Have you seen Netflix's thing about the Son of Sam?
No, I haven't.
You need to watch that, because that is actually a pretty good. It's about Terry Maury, and the book The Ultimate Evil, and it's about his investigations. Terry Maury was the journalist who first made, and Peter Levenda talks about him, was the journalist whose book Ultimate Evil first proposed that Son of Sam was a member of a cult that was connected to the Process Church of the Final Judgment. Okay. And what's interesting about this, it's like a 4-part series, 3 or 4 parts. And what's interesting, and they include conversations. Terry Maury was one of the first people that had he is the only person that David Berkowitz would talk to. Okay. So there are recorded conversations of him and David Berkowitz. He did all of this research into, what he believed was that what Son of Sam was into or got caught in was like a break off of the Process Church of the Final Judgment. But a lot of what they talk about in there is stuff that Peter Levenda talks about in a different way in his Sinister Forces books. So if you're interested in all of that's another really good source. But it's on Netflix. You could just Google like Son of Sam and Maury, Maury, and it'll come up.
Wow, you want to hear something weird?
What?
Timothy Wiley was in that cult, I believe. He's passed now, but he was a dude that was been on the show, and he writes these books about like fallen angels and weird stuff. They were redeemed, and some of them were redeemed and work for humanity now. But one of his big things was he was in, here's something on IMDb. It says Sympathy for the Devil, the true story of the Process Church of the Final Judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess he was in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've interviewed him in like written form on the show. And he was on that Hamilton's Pharmacopoeia. And it was about God, what was it? Some kind of drug he was doing. And on that show, I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's just like this nerdy dude that goes around doing drugs everywhere. And he's like very scientific and smart about it. and he went to Timothy Wiley's house. I don't remember what they did. Maybe it was angel dust or something, or ketamine or something. I don't remember, but it was crazy. But here there's actually it was PCP.
Oh,
Here I found a YouTube Vice video. If you look up Hamilton's pharmacopody, Timothy Wiley, you can watch it. But he was in that weird thing. I don't know much about that cult. I mean, was that
the
what?
process?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, he might have said
Well,
something about it, but I didn't remember. I don't
well,
remember.
the reason, the interesting thing about the process is that my understanding is that some of the, I can't recall now how many founders of the process there were, but at least two members who founded the process of the church, the process church, were originally in Dianetics and Scientology, and they broke off from that and started this other thing. And that's how, apparently, at least according to the Netflix, the information that the investigators came up with, is that what Charles Manson's connection to all this is that he heard, he was in prison and he was exposed to both Scientology and then finally the Process Church while he was in prison, and absorbed some of their principles. It isn't that there was a direct connection between him and Berkowitz, which is what some people assert. There wasn't, but they were both connected to the Process Church through different means. Manson becoming exposed to it in prison, and then Berkowitz was exposed to a breakoff group, which Maury identified as the Children, and that they called themselves that. They were like a group that had been influenced by people who had been influenced by, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, how David Kevorkian, not David Kevorkian, who's that guy?
David Koresh.
Thank you. David Koresh. David Koresh founded his own group out of the Branch Davidians who had come out of the Seventh-day Adventists. Okay. So in a way, the Children, whatever group David Berkowitz was attached to, was a group that had come out of a group that had been attached to the Process Church. Okay. So it was like two removed, but they had similar ideas. And among those ideas were certain apocalyptic ideas about the necessity for blood sacrifice and murder. And this was not part of the original Process Church, but some of the terminology that they used lent itself to kind of fanatics interpreting it that way. So
yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out. What makes people just be in that and then want to go kill people?
Well, I don't. I mean, according to David Berkowitz, the person who led the local chapter, if you will, of the Children was a guy named I think James or John Carr, and he was Sam. He was Sam was the dog that Carr used. That one of the things they did was they sacrificed German Shepherd dogs. And apparently this was happening in Yonkers, New York. And there's plenty of physical evidence about it. And even the police knew about it, which the most interesting thing to me about that series on Netflix is not that evidence is found of a cult. I mean, that there's lots of evidences of different types of cults, but it's why the New York Police Department will not deal with stuff like this. I mean, it's, they're once, and the department is still like this. Once the department as a whole kind of decides on a particular interpretation of things, that's what they stick with, even if there's plenty of evidence to the contrary, like Epstein's so-called suicide. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's bizarre. It's like, who pays these people off to do this, and why? I mean, what is the point? It's just really weird. Anyway, I think you would like it. In fact, when I was watching it, I was thinking of you. I was like, Jeffrey would really like this if he hasn't already seen it.
I'll have to check it out sometime. I'm trying to think what the last one kind of show like that I've watched. I started one that was about Henry Lee Lucas, but for some reason the sound was weird on it when I had seen it, and it was hard to listen to. But it was about him on there or something, and going into if he was lying about a lot of the murders and stuff. It was really creepy, but a lot of that stuff I have to be careful.
Oh,
Like
well, yeah. Oh,
that
yeah.
stuff's a
I
lot.
mean, I guess the reason why this one is a little bit easier to watch, excuse me, even though the subject matter is kind of intense, is because I think it's really clear that David Berkowitz, when he was in prison, because when he was sucked into the cult, he was a young guy, and he was kind of naive, and he was sort of lost,
Yeah.
like a lot like people who got caught by Manson's cult. He just kind of got sucked into it. And in his interviews with Terry, he is really open about that. He talks about where he was mentally and how it made him vulnerable to these kinds of ideas. And he's able to pretty clearly state which murders he participated in and which he did not.
And I know that one of the last books I read, True Crime, was Jeffrey Dahmer, and that made me not want to read them ever again. But I know I have that Ed Gein Depraved I've been wanting to read, but I don't know if I can. That one's pretty rough. I know. It's called Depraved.
Oh, is that the one is that the one about
Ed Gein? Ed Gein.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's called Depraved. And of course, one of the biggest ones we talked about that with Dave Morse was H.H. Holmes. That
yeah, H.H.
man,
Holmes.
that's a good one to talk about. But that's intense. It's really intense. That supposedly Martin Scorsese, and I don't know if Leonardo DiCaprio is still involved. They're supposed to be doing a television show called Devil in the White City based on that book that I needed to read that as well and never did, and by Jack Larson or something like that. But they're supposed to be doing a Holmes show. So that should be pretty interesting with Scorsese. God, how that's gonna be. But I don't know if DiCaprio's still playing him, but it's definitely intense. I've interviewed Jeff Mudgett, and he's a relative of him, and some fascinating weird stuff. And then, of course, some people think he was Jack the Ripper. I don't know if I believe that, but there is some weird things about it that line up strange in the time periods and stuff, and the years, and some I think train like Holmes's name was found on some ledgers over there and weird stuff. But who knows? I don't have a time machine, but it's definitely fascinating. But Holmes definitely gives me the creeps. That's one of them that definitely.
Well, yeah, I mean, he was like about as far out there as you can go.
Yeah, his whole thing was just kill people to profit, right?
Well, and just to see how many ways he could do it.
Yeah, and then he set up that whole building, which just had like crazy stuff in it. Locking people in safes, cyanide gas, and just weird. It's crazy. Yeah. And I know David said something about Holmes claimed that the devil came to him in a mirror or something weird. That's kind of a weird little story. Like he saw it in his face and stuff in the mirror, and he'd go around saying he was the devil and stuff. And of course, there's debate whether if he actually got executed, which I guess he did. I don't know. I don't have a time machine, but definitely fascinating. I've had Jeff on it quite a few times about that subject. And he's had that show American Ripper on History Channel, which that was the one that got into the Jack the Ripper stuff, which I think he pissed a lot of people off saying that, probably like all the British people and all that. But I don't know. But there is some weird stuff about it for sure. So has there been any more developments on the Jim thing, or is that ongoing?
Oh, that's sort of just ongoing. Yeah, I mean, the latest that my trainer was telling me about is something that happened maybe about 3 weeks ago. On Tuesday night, they have a group class that's called boot camp, which I haven't been able to go to because I've had to teach this semester. I usually go to it when I don't have to teach. But anyway, they were having boot camp, and it's in the evening. It's about maybe 5:45 in the evening. And they had several people there. They had like maybe 5 or 6 people there. And all of the people there, and it was cold outside, so it was closed up. You know what I mean? You know, they do have windows there that can open, big sliding glass windows. But so I'm just saying this because nothing could have come in from outside. Okay. So it was closed up, and all of a sudden, everybody simultaneously started smelling cigar smoke. And like nobody smokes cigars in that apartment building. And so it was too late for the shops that are underneath to be open. So Austin went downstairs and he started looking around and to try to see if there was any place where cigar smoke could be coming from. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And there wasn't. I mean, it's like other than other people that live in apartments that were on the far end of the building, like away from them, there was nobody else in the building. And so, and the cigar smoke just was sudden. It was like, he said it was like somebody was just standing in the room smoking cigars, and it made no sense. And then it just stopped at, like you would, if you were in the room where they were working out and then walked into the hall, it just stopped. It didn't leak out into the hall. It was weird. And all he could conclude was that must have been, one of that, because that is one of the manifestations of one of the principal ghosts that haunts the place, is that wherever it goes, cigar smoke accompanies it. And there was also the room got really, really cold, and everybody sort of felt kind of freaked out. It was just sort of like this wave of freak out, it kind of swept over everybody. And there were like 5 or 6 people in there, so everybody experienced it. It was like a group experience.
And there was a book I got recently. It's pretty interesting. I haven't read it yet, but it's one of those kind that you can kind of just flip to a chapter and read if you want to. But It's called Making Contact, Preparing for the New Realities of Extraterrestrial Existence by Alan Steinfeld.
Oh, yeah, I know who he is. Yeah, I know exactly who he is.
And it's got that Bashar guy in it. It's got Mary Rodwell.
Right.
I would like to read the Bashar one, and I mean, I would read the whole thing, but I might get him on or try to sometime. It's one of those books. Sometimes I get a lot of books, and I don't get to open them for a while, so I should have probably opened that one a little sooner, and I found it later. But it seems pretty good. I want to check it out some more. I want to get into this Mary Rodwell because she's supposed to have some interesting stuff. Have you heard of her before?
I have heard her name. I have not read her stuff.
Supposed to be some pretty interesting things. Caroline Corey, Superhuman and E.T. There's old Nick Pope.
Oh, Nick Pope.
Yes, but I haven't interviewed him in many moons. John Mack. Of course, there's my best friend Whitley Strieber.
Whitley.
There's JJ and Desiree Hortak. I've heard them somewhere. I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, JJ Hertak. Oh yeah. Oh boy, I'm one of their enemies.
Oh really?
Oh,
I don't know any. I've heard the name, but I don't know them. I don't know them from Adam. Why? What happened with that?
Well, it's a long time ago. I don't know that they even remember exactly, but I have this whole story about the Hertaks. Way back in like 19, what was it? No, it wasn't 19. It was like 2002, 2003, a long time ago, about 10, 20 years ago. I was asked to do a paper at a New Religions conference in Waco, Texas, of all places. And that was, I mean, there's a whole story behind that, which is very interesting. I actually got to visit. It was like an anniversary of the Waco attack, and so I actually got to visit we all visited on an important day there, and I actually got to talk to David Koresh's mother, which was very interesting. But anyway, I was asked to give a presentation, and I chose to do one on J.J. Hertak's uh, his Book of Knowledge, Keys of Enoch thing, and
Okay.
it's full of anti-Islamic content. I mean, just chock full of anti-Islamic content.
Okay.
And so that's what I was doing. I was also just talking about some of his interesting uses of sources and, things like that. And I did some history on the book. He was if you know Jacques Vallée's book, Messenger of Deception. In
Yes.
Jacques Vallée's book, he records an interview that he gives, or or that he has with J.J. Hurtak before J.J. Hurtak actually published that book. And so Hurtak is talking about that book at that time, and drops a few interesting bits of information to Vallée about his actual sources for the book, which nobody ever thinks about. But anyway, so I did all of this. I got this. It was like 3 or 4 months later. The book, the paper was published. It was like 3 or 4 months later. I get a letter in the mail where I lived where I lived at the time, and it claimed that it was from Hurtak's lawyer, and that they were concerned that I was potentially defaming Hurtak. But it was written in a really weird way. It wasn't like threatening exactly, because the fact is that it was a scholarly paper, and scholars can say whatever they want to in that regard. And since Hurtak likes to tout his 2 PhDs, and he likes to say that he's speaking as an academic, well, as an academic, I can speak right back to him. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
you can't threaten me with this, right? Well, I didn't hear anything back from the so-called lawyer, but I never believed that it was actually from a lawyer anyway. If you actually looked really carefully at the language and the wording that he used, I think Hurtak wrote it himself, and just stuck a lawyer's name on there. I don't think that a lawyer actually.
Oh man.
But anyway, as a result of that, Hurtak and his wife personally invited me to a seminar that they were giving in Herndon, Virginia, of all places, where they had just published, or he had just published, his translation of the Pistis Sophia, which is a Gnostic text, in which he tries to give this esoteric reading of it. When I read the Pistis Sophia, I could see that it was rife with plagiarism, just immediately. You know what I mean? It was like I was going, here's the source, here's the source, here's the source, here's the source. It was just bizarre. I mean, he lifts almost verbatim an entire page from one of Jane Roberts' fictional books.
Wow.
Without attribution. Okay. And so anyway, I went ahead and went to this workshop, or whatever the hell it was. It was like a 6-hour long thing. It was held in the summertime in a Quaker meeting hall, which means we're in Virginia in summer in an unair conditioned place. And let me tell you, I mean, this is a whole story. I was sitting there, and the entire room was filled with people from the Defense Department. I would say 3/4 to 70% of the people that were in the audience were people from the Pentagon.
Wow.
They were from the Defense Department, the Pentagon. There was a general there. I could tell by his insignia. It was bizarre. It's like, why are all these people at the Defense Department? Just because Herndon, Virginia is close to the Pentagon, why are all these people from the Pentagon listening to this crazy man? And it was the worst presentation I have ever seen. There was no media presentation. There were no slides. This was before you had all of the fancy, stuff that you could use. Certainly couldn't get on the internet, but at the very least you could have like a slide presentation or something like that. Basically, what he did was he had a helper about 20 minutes or maybe 30 minutes before the presentation. He had a helper go through and tape these big pieces of paper where he had like handwritten all of these notes and covering the walls. It was just like covering the walls like wallpaper. But then he didn't refer to any of it. He didn't even talk about the Pistis Sophia that much. All he did was he sat or stood with his back to the audience. With his back to the audience, without a microphone, and his wife was reading from a notebook in which she was trying to demonstrate how the Book of Knowledge, Keys of Enoch, had fulfilled various biblical prophecies. It was just the most 6 hours of that. It was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen in my life. It was bizarre. I mean, to this day, I'm like, what was that? What was that? I have no idea what that was.
Sounds strange. I know one time I got a letter from the Hynek family about something Andy did in a book or something, and they sent it to me like I did it.
Oh.
And I was like, I think I gave it to Andy or whatever. I don't know what happened, but they never wrote me back. But it was just weird getting it from, the Project Blue Book, living descendants of Alan Hynek. It got straightened out, but I don't remember the details of what it was or anything. It was just a weird
that is very strange.
One of those weird emails. And so what happened with the David Koresh situation and the mother? I saw some series about that David Koresh, and I know there's a lot of creepy things brought up about him with kids but I mean, it kind of, the way they did that series, I forget who played him, but it was pretty good. It was on Paramount or something, but it made you kind of sympathetic for him on some levels. It's just a weird thing. But how did the mother thing come up?
Well, first of all, it isn't terribly clear. I mean, that was the charge that children were being abused was the reason that was given for Janet Reno at the time, who was the Attorney General of the United States, to make the decision about sending the FBI and all those other people, to the compound. That was the reason that was given. The problem is that there wasn't actually really clear evidence that there had been abuse, or if there had been, what it was, because the state of Texas had already done a pretty thorough investigation of the compound and had concluded that there wasn't any finding there worth charging anybody about. So there's still some debate about what was actually going on there in terms of that. But I think what's important to understand is that David Koresh's mother believed in him. She believed that he was who he said he was. And, as a Branch Davidian, that he was the Messiah. And now how he interpreted that was not that he was Christ, was not that he was supernatural, but he interpreted Messiah in the way that the Hebrew Bible means Messiah or Moshiach, which is someone who's been anointed by God in a special capacity to lead God's children, whoever God's children are, to lead them into a new way of understanding the world, to deliver them in a sense, and to deliver a new message to the world. That's what the Hebrew term Moshiach means. It doesn't refer to a deity. It's not like, he was God on earth. And in fact, when she was talking to me, she was pretty clear about it. Well, we went as part of a religious studies group who were going to talk to the members of the church that had survived and that were coming back to this kind of commemorative event that was happening. And so I actually brought flowers. I brought flowers both for there are a number of graves there on the compound where especially the children that were killed, most of them were buried. And there's even though there are separate graves, there is like a central monument, and so I put some flowers there. I also brought flowers for her because we were told that she was going to be there. But basically what she just told me about her son, she was a mother talking about her son. And because she lost her son, and she lost a number of grandchildren. She lost most of her family in that conflagration. So for her, it was a very sort of personal, series of events. She wasn't on the compound when it occurred. A lot of David's followers weren't. So, a lot of people just have a misunderstanding of how all of that works. And but that's she mostly just talked about him and what he believed and what he was like when he was a kid, and it was just stuff like that. It was startlingly normal.
But was there abuse and stuff? Do we know that there was 100%?
We don't. You mean of children?
Yeah, or any kind.
We don't know. We don't know. And the people who would be best placed to answer that question are dead.
Yeah, they all died, and then the government kind of did that by, they were firing at them and shooting at them and stuff, and they
there is evidence that when the government forces made the final assault and were shooting things into the windows, that they were shooting incendiary devices.
Yeah.
There's evidence for that.
And they had guns and stuff, right?
They had guns, but you're in Texas.
Yeah.
Everybody has guns, and they did not have any illegal guns. That was, they had collected a lot of their guns to sell at gun shows. That's part of how they got their money.
Yeah.
When people say they had guns, it's like, they're in Texas. You can have guns in Texas. You can have a friggin' lot of guns in Texas. Were some of them unregistered? Probably, but I'm sure probably more than half of the guns in Texas are not registered. So, it's none of that makes any sense.
Yeah. It's definitely, the series was pretty good. It was on Paramount. I forget what it was called, but I know John Leguizamo was in it as an FBI agent. That's all I remember. And they were playing music to try to, I remember them playing in the series. I don't know if this is true or not. I guess it probably is true. They were playing music a lot to deal with it or whatever during the raid and all that. Or they were on the compound and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah. It's important really to understand that, all of the things that the government was doing to them, it was a lot of psychological warfare stuff that had been done against the Viet Cong during the Vietnam War. There was a lot of stuff like that. All of that stuff played right into their belief system that they were dealing with the forces of the Antichrist. To them, it was just proof. The FBI was just proving their point over and over and over and over again. So there was like very, very little reason for them to give in. I'm not saying that he was a hero. I don't know whether he was a hero or not. I don't know what I think about people who are deeply convicted of their own messianic mission. A lot of those people come to no good end. Some of them are people like Elon Musk. And we know where that leads. So it's like, I really think though that the government could have done something other than kill over 80 people.
Yeah. I know in that show, it was called Waco, Taylor Kitsch, which I don't know what else I've seen him in, played David Koresh, Rory Culkin, the Culkins, the one from Home Alone, the brother or whatever was in it. Michael Shannon, I forgot about him. He was in it. He's an FBI or something, I think, or maybe he was. I don't remember, but I think he was FBI. But it's worth the watch. It's on Paramount. But definitely the cult thing's crazy. There was a good one me and Christina saw on Heaven's Gate on HBO that was pretty weird. I forget the name of it, but it was good. But it got behind the scenes more of all that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
forget.
That's another group that Jacques Ballet profiles in Messengers of Deception. He profiles the two leaders of the Heaven's Gate before they become Heaven's Gate, and he predicts that something not good is going to happen there, which is really interesting. If you go back and reread Messengers of Deception, which was published in the late in the middle in mid late 70s 1970s, it's really terrifying how prescient, how prophetic that book is.
I know I had a weird Heaven's Gate Hell Bop experience, which I don't know what the hell happened, but I know I was on psychedelics. I remember sitting Indian style in the driveway watching Hell Bop, and I don't know what this means. It could be illusions from the devil for all I know. But I was watching Hell Bop, and I saw a bunch of lights go towards it, like they were coming, like just going towards it. I don't know what they were, or if they were beings of light, maybe it was meteors. I don't know what they were, but I didn't even know anything about Heaven's Gate when that happened. And then that night, I went inside my mom's house, and there it was on TV, and that dude was talking. And for some reason, like tears went down my face. I don't know what the hell it meant. I'd never heard of Heaven's Gate in my life.
Maybe you saw some Heaven's Gate souls
Go to the comet. That's what I think really happened. But I don't know what the hell happened. What the heaven happened. But maybe I was sipping the Kool-Aid that night, and psychically something happened. But I don't give any credence to it. I don't know what the hell happened. But I lost a testicle to testicular cancer back in the day, and let me tell you, I would never do that on purpose. Well, that was the weirdest crap ever. Like, I don't know. That's some crazy for sure. But who's to know? Maybe there was some kind of weird truth to it. Who knows? Maybe they went to meet Lucifer, Lord of Light, and he took them to hell. I don't know. But Hell Bop was really weird. And there was weird stuff about a companion object. And I don't know if that was a hoax. I don't know what it was,
Yeah,
but it was on Art Bell and all that. They were passing around a picture, and something was behind it. Like, cut off your testes and go meet the aliens, baby. It's gonna be a hot night in the city tonight. But what's so weird? They seemed like all those people were nice, like from the neighbors and stuff,
Yeah,
like Star Trek, and
yeah,
they seem weird, but
yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like people are normal until they're not.
yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like it's just really, I don't know.
When it comes to killing folks and cutting off your own stuff, that's where I draw the line. That's
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
No slicing and dicing, thanks.
Yeah.
No slicing.
Got enough problems. Don't want to karmically have a backlash to where you have to come back here in some worse situation. But that one on HBO was pretty interesting if you ever get a chance to see it, which I know you're Amish, don't watch television. Have you watched anything lately besides that? Is that the only thing you've watched in a while, the Son of Sam thing?
No, I have been watching some Netflix stuff, and I have been watching Star Trek Discovery and Picard.
Cool.
So I do have a subscription to Paramount, and because I am a Star Trek nerd. I mean, I have to confess. I mean, some people like Star Wars. I like Star Trek. That's just me. So.
Yeah, definitely. Me and Christina were gonna dig up those old Star Trek movies and watch them. I remember seeing those at the drive-in, those old ones.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen some of Discovery. I'm 2 seasons behind. I saw the first season of Picard. I'll catch up one year, but I hear Q. Is Q in there yet? Don't tell me too much.
Yeah. Well, he does. Yeah, he is part of season 2.
I definitely love some Q.
But I'm not gonna go any further than that.
Good. I know Stranger Worlds is coming and some other weird one.
Well, I rewatched all 3 seasons of that to kind of remind myself of the trajectory, so that I'm all ready for it.
And I know you don't do much gaming, but there is a cool Star Trek game coming out. It looks awesome. Looking forward to that. they've been making Star Trek games on PC, like old ones from like back in the 80s. They're pretty good. I remember playing them when I was younger. But Stranger Worlds, there's some other show coming of Star Trek too that's about like the secret with that Asian lady or something. I forget.
Oh
But
yeah. There's one. Yeah, there's actually I think a couple spin-off stories. There's there's one that stars Michelle Yu, whatever her name is, and then
yes,
the guy who plays Christopher Pike,
yeah.
Captain Pike. Yeah.
I'll check them out. I never watched that Yellowstone show on Paramount. I meant to. I've been told it's good, but they did some weird spin-off westerns of that, like 1883 and some
Yeah.
666 or something weird that's coming. But I know Billy Bob Thornton and Sam Elliott are in the weird older western one. I'd like to check that out. But I've never seen Yellowstone either. I've been watching Better Call Saul, trying to watch the final season of that. I enjoyed that with Bob Odenkirk. He had a heart attack during that season. I'm glad he's still kicking. I like Bob Odenkirk. He's still, he's okay, but he definitely, some desert scenes, man, I got to him. There's a lot of desert scenes with the cartel in Better Call Saul. But, well, it was an interesting show, and we'll get him back sometime in next week's Jerry Sargent. And we'll keep on trucking. I know there's some old animated series of Star Trek that are old that are pretty cool. I have those somewhere. It was like a cartoon. It kind of looks like Ralph Bakshi stuff, but I don't think it was. But they like did some animated seasons of old Star Trek. I need to check those out. I bet they're pretty cool. We watched some Dark Shadows. Like I had some greatest hits. Old Barnabas comes into the cafe and messing with the waitress and leaves his cane.
Yeah. Good old Barney.
And then he was
Barney Collins,
old in one of them, really old, where he got really old. There's so many of those. Like I have them all.
I saw all 1,243 of them.
Gosh, where'd you see them at, on a streaming or?
No, I don't know if you can still do this. I don't know if they're still available. But when I went, back in the day when you could get DVDs from Netflix, I guess you still can get some from Netflix, but they had all of them.
Wow!
And so I went through all of them, and it took I don't know 3 years or something like that to watch all of them. It was really it was a marathon, and honestly, I'm glad I did it because I grew up in the 60s and early 70s as a child, being haunted by that show and remembering it, but never having seen all of it because my parents wouldn't let me watch it. I mean, so I had to sneak it in, but I'll never want to do it again because it's
a lot.
It's on. Well, not only that, but honestly, it's not that good of a show. I mean, by our standards today, I mean, it's got some kitschy gothic things, which are kind of fun. And it's really camp now. Now, when you watch it, it's like, it's kind of, it's like a period piece, it's really kind of funny. And there was nothing else on TV at the time that was remotely like it.
Yeah.
But the acting is terrible. The writing is often really bad. The storylines suck a lot of times. And especially the first 6 months until they actually start introducing supernatural elements into it are boring.
Yeah.
Boring. But you have to get through them in order to understand some of the characters.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I
may do it one year. But, I better end this thing. It's been, thanks, Wham. Thanks, everybody, for listening. And we'll see you next Friday. And everybody have a good weekend. You listen to United Public Radio. Check out UFO Paranormal Radio, and Gods and Extraterrestrials. I think I messed that one up on YouTube. Have a good weekend, everybody. Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.